This is part one of the Columbine Calamity, and we're in John chapter 14, but it'll be just a little bit before we're there. This week I've been gone Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and then of course yesterday we were gone from pillar to post over here from about 8:30 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, moving the fence and so forth. And so I haven't had a whole lot of time to be in the office, and we're going to have to therefore deal with my stick figures up here rather than the more professional computer-generated graphics. But you'll get the picture about what we are discussing. And it's been on the news. It started at the beginning of the week. It will be part of the national psyche for months to come. And that's what happened at the Columbine High School there in Littleton, Colorado, where two students came in. They were part of what's called the trench coat mafia. They came in, excuse the phrase, loaded for bear, let me tell you. They had 20-pound canisters of propane gas. They had automatic weapons, sawed-off shotguns, handguns, and so forth. And they were determined to go in there and take out as many people as they possibly could before they themselves would turn the guns on them and commit suicide. Now, this is not really, at this point, an isolated incident. It started several years back at Moses Lake, Washington, then Jonesboro, Arkansas, then Paducah, Kentucky, real close to home, Springfield, Oregon, Notus, Idaho, and on we could go with listings, and many, of course, we probably don't know about, of kids going into high schools and killing other kids and teachers and so forth and the like. And you always have the world, especially the news media, ask itself, well, what's going on? Why is this occurring? And so forth. You have a whole lot of breastfeeding. What could we have done? And the like. The fact of the matter is, I don't think there's too much of anything that anyone could have done. Unless we started off the Bible way and raising these kids correctly. But you know right well, if a teacher would have said to those kids, don't wear your Nazi berets, don't wear your long trench coats, and so forth, the parents would have come, and who would have been to blame? The kids? Would the kids have been corrected? Absolutely not. It would have been the teacher's fault and the like. Same with the police officers and so forth. Until you get now, and that's part of what we're going to be studying about, what's happening in the world. Why is this happening? One of the things that Satan wants to do is have gun legislation. He wants to take guns out of the hands of law-abiding citizens. And we'll see how he's going to do this. It's a two-pronged attack, and it's really quite a genius activity, where he focuses on one thing and makes it so bad that he gets rid of the other thing. Now, since we all want world peace, what's one of the things we can do to bring about world peace? We'll take away all handguns, take away all rifles, and so forth. Well, how's he going to do that? Make guns look bad. Now, he doesn't realize that guns are good if somebody has a gun and is coming at you and is going to take away your liberty and so forth. Do you know why we're here this morning? Because somebody carried a gun. Do you know why we're here this morning? Because somebody shot a gun and killed somebody else who wanted to take your liberty away. But we forget about World War I and World War II. We forget about the Civil War. We forget about the so-called Revolutionary War and the like. Actually, it wasn't a Revolutionary War. It was a war for independence. So we could get away from the crown who was taxing us to death, without representation, by the way. And that is what's occurring in our world. You have to understand that Satan wants to set up his man, Antichrist. And since Christ is going to come back and be the Prince of Peace, and since he has got to establish world peace before Christ comes back in a counterfeit kingdom, he has got to begin working on these various things like guns in order to remove them from the scene. And after all, if we don't have a gun, we'll be fine. Don't understand how in the world how we're going to take away all knives, how are we going to take away all propane tanks, Kids get drunk and use automobiles to wipe out 1 to 4 people or more, and the like. And yet we don't understand that. But we do understand now, it seems, that, boy, we just have to get rid of these guns. Now, I'm for, of course, responsible use of guns. Murder is wrong, but you can murder somebody with a car, with a knife, with a club, with a baseball bat, with a tire iron. Need I go further? Because all of those are weapons. With your hands, you can kill somebody. How many have been strangled? And so forth. But now here we are with 2 kids coming in and killing 13 other kids, putting sawed-off shotguns point blank in their face and shooting and laughing about it. Then you have these kids, as we mentioned, having the propane tanks, other homemade bombs, up to 50 of them, they say, possible. Now, what is going on here? Let's just think a minute. Aside from all that's been said in the news, let's just think a minute about their targets. Number one, with the propane tanks, and someone said 20 pounds of propane in this canister, once you ignite it, it's going to do major damage. But the propane tanks were not necessarily directed toward people, they were directed toward property. They wanted to destroy the school. Why? Because that school represented something to them. Having to submit to authority and restrict themselves to the regimens of the classroom and time. What is one of the things they did not want to do? Have anybody to tell them what to do, which is the general tone of where we are today in history. Doesn't matter who you are or where you are or what organization. We don't want to be told what to do. We want to finagle, we want to neglect or whatever, to get out from having to submit to a structure or to a hierarchy. And these kids were attacking a building that represented to them structure and authority, which they hated. Again, Antichrist is going to come along, and with the system he's going to have, everybody's going to want to go to school. It's going to all be hunky-dory and so forth. Somehow he is going to be so personable that he's going to convince us all that authority and respect for property and structure are right. Now, fact is, I agree with him. How in the world are you going to bring about world peace? Can 2 walk together except they be agreed? And he is going to convince us all that his way is the best way, and he is going to incorporate half-truths. It is right to subject to a structure. It is right to subject to a hierarchy. It is right to be in submission to those in authority over us. And he's going to take God's own concepts. Remember, he is Antichrist. We all think of him to be a demon as such, where he is just going to be lawless, and that's not true. He, says the Apostle Paul, as what? Sits in the temple of God? Declaring himself what? God. He doesn't want to be perceived as some meanie. He wants to be perceived as a deity who is righteous, and that he is God, and that he can bring peace to this planet, apart from the true and living God and his Son, Jesus Christ. So he doesn't want to be perceived as a meanie. You have to keep that in mind. Yes, Satan is doing this, but it's a diversionary tactic. Anybody in the military or that understands games and that sort of thing understands the diversionary tactic. You've got men on the right flank, men on the left flank, and they're hiding, and you've got an army coming at you. And what do? You retreat. Well, you should stand there and fight. No, not so. You retreat. And the army that's coming at you perceives that they've got you on the route. So they come into this cul-de-sac, and all of a sudden you've got an army in front of them, an army to the flank, and you just simply catch them in the crossfire and destroy them. The retreat was a diversionary tactic to bring people into the trap. And what is happening in our schools today is focusing on some of these various things to catch us off guard with a man who is going to be so great in his, it says his dark sayings, he understands them. With his mouth, he speaks great things. And he's going to bring solutions to the world's problems. And that's where we are today. This happening over here is a diversionary tactic. Now, as I say this, of course, I am not belittling the fact that it's a tragedy. I'm not belittling the fact that many lives, there are 23 wounded, 13 murdered, 2 committed suicide. What a waste of life's potential. What a waste. It's a tragedy. But I'm telling you who is the one behind it. And as we will see in just a little bit, we will understand not only the strategy of the devil, but we will also see what's God's judgment in the whole thing. And that's what's beginning to happen. Okay, the second thing. Not only did they want to attack the school, but they went to a specific room in the school. The library. Why? Well, that's the place where the students congregate to do the most studying and research and books and the like. Now, you wonder why these kids and others across this nation do not like to study. Why are churches today where you don't study but have mindless gibberish and senseless activities going on? Why do people congregate to that rather than open the Word of God and let's learn what this Greek word means, let's learn its tense, and so that you can understand exactly the concept God has for us? Oh, no, we can't do that. We have to be mindless. Now, that's church services and church music, but on the other hand, I have always contended there is much by way of the music that has been spawned since the late 50s, much by way of that music that desensitizes the soul. And you know something? Of all people, I had one of the world-renowned psychiatrists to agree with me, and they quoted him in the news media saying that this death metal, heavy metal music, drug-oriented, sex-related music desensitizes the soul of our young people. Now, when I started saying this years ago, I had even Christian parents to say, wait a minute, what's wrong with that? It gives our young people something to do. Well, that's fine. But as long as you are going to have music that does, number one, it repeats. Have you ever heard songs? What do the songs do? They repeat the refrain over and over and over and over and over. Well, what does repetition do? What does repetition do here? Inculcation. Until finally, it becomes part of your being. You see, that's what we're after in one way, where the ideas you don't just claim promises anymore. You live according to doctrine because it's part of your essence. It's you. It's what you're about. But on the other hand, if you have a situation where you are getting this business of bad words, bad concepts, and we have them today in music where we're told to kill one another, hate teachers, hate police officers, shoot them, and so forth. You ever heard of gangsta rap and the like? They're making billions of dollars off this. And our young people are listening to it, and we go, well, what's happening to our young people? And I want to shake the people that are producing it and parents. Do I say censor it? No, not whatsoever. Do I say parents should tell their kids no? Yes. It should go out of business because we don't buy it anymore, not because we censor it. The kids were listening to Marilyn Manson, and I had people call me, why don't you get a group together and we'll hold placards out in front of the Marilyn Manson building. I said, okay, and right after that we'll go down to the local Catholic church and do that because there's just much false doctrine and error and demonism there, and we'll placard the Catholic. But they didn't want that because they were ecumenical and I think probably Catholic. Let's placard every church that is not teaching the truth because they're just as demonic as Marilyn Manson. But now, as far as influence is concerned, here you have a guy who Dresses weird, acts weird, is weird. And he is... Do you suppose that Marilyn Manson is going to be sued? You know, guess who's going to be sued? Gun manufacturers. Is Marilyn Manson going to be sued? Is he going to be drawn and quartered? Is he going to be tarred and feathered? Is he going to be hung by the nearest tree? He is not. I will bet you sales increase because of this nonsense. And yet nobody ever says, wait 1 second. Where are the parents saying no? Well, we're at a situation today where you can't do anything anyway. You can't paddle kids. People complain if they are put out any by detention after school and the like. Parents get mad, beat red. Hey, I've been there. I understand what is going on. And that's what's happening today. Hands are tied, and then once it happens, well, why didn't somebody do anything about it? And you want to tell this dad, bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. Why wasn't your backside in church with your kids right beside you with an open Bible studying the Scriptures? Oh, no, that's too much to ask. They fail as parents, but then it's the police officer's fault. It's the teacher's fault. It's the pastor's fault, and so forth. I've been that route where kids were rowdy, and I would say, well, bring them to church. Well, no, they don't like Pastor Walters because he wants them to study. Well, that's fine. And almost every single one of them is out thither and yon. Some have become criminals. Some are doing nothing by way of the spiritual life. And you know what? I still stand by what I say. Bring up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he won't depart from it. And ye fathers, bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. So anybody think differently? I mean, we can discuss it afterwards, but you bring your scriptures and I'll bring mine. And that's the whole point. We want it to come out right, but we don't want to live right according to the scriptures. Now, so they attack the library. Next, they attack the masses. Time and again, we were told that they had homemade pipe bombs with more shrapnel than they could hold. You know, they would glue on, evidently, bits of glass and stone and nails and the like. So when this thing exploded, it would have a spreading effect and then a shredding effect. And those pipe bombs were designed for one thing only: to wound, maim, or kill as many in a crowd as possible. Now, why did they hate the crowd? Simply because the crowd gave sanction to the other people that they hated, which were people of color and athletes. They did not like them. And so they'd go step on and the athletes and so forth would persecute them, and perhaps the people of color would say smart aleck things, and their hands are tied. And these kids are being persecuted and hated, and they can't do anything about it. And they lack the power to change the minds of the population of that school. So what do? That's what they thought. Since I can't win anyway, why don't I just show them what I can do by way of about, 15 minutes of glory here, and take out a few of them as I go out in a blaze of glory. And that's what they were doing. They were attacking as many students as they could who were listening to the athletes and the people of color that were persecuting them. And these people were powerful in the school, in the caste system. You always have athletes or those people of color that rise to the top, and all the kids follow them because they are popular and they are powerful. They set the trends, and the kids follow, just like the Pied Piper. But these kids were left out. So who's the next thing, or what's the next thing you have to attack? The masses giving sanction to this sort of thing. And you'll hear, well, now, these were innocent victims. And you ask yourself the question, is it innocent to persecute somebody else? to call them names, to belittle them, day after day after day at school, to make them feel that small, to tease them beyond tears? Is it innocent to do that? I ask you that question. No, it is not right. Teasing and jesting is all part, they said, of high school. That's true. But you get the impression that these people were put in their own little corner, and they were teased, and they withdrew simply because of the pain. The emotional pain that was being heaped on them by athletes and people of color who thought that they were so big and so bad and had everybody else following them, that finally these kids resorted to that sort of thing. And that's where we are today. Who are the heroes of our young people? Well, just look at the music that is listened to. We have guys with weird names that do weird dances, have weird hairdos, and all sorts of other pagan outfits, singing these hip-hop songs, the rap-type music, and so forth. And they're making a mint off our kids. And as they're doing it, I just dare you, and anybody who doubts what I'm saying, just watch 15 minutes of either MTV or the black channel, a music channel. Just watch it. See how they dress. See what portions of the anatomy they point to and emphasize. See what they talk about. And then wonder why in the world we're having baby after baby out of wedlock. Why in the world our young people are so rebellious, anti-authoritarian. Wonder where they're getting the ideas to, if you can't submit to authority, take the authority out so you have no more competition, you become your own authority. Where are they getting these ideas? Right there. Now, we'll hurt the guns, but are we going to hurt that music? Are we going to hurt these weirdos that are making up the songs? Probably not. They'll probably, as I said, make even more money because it's the thing to do. And on the other hand, now, here we have a situation in our world today, and there's nothing wrong with being an athlete. Excellence in any area that's legitimate ought to be recognized, of course. And these people can be leaders, of course. But the reverse can be true in abuse. And I'm telling you, we're being abused today by athletics. I went to school way back in the 60s, and I had a full scholarship to this school. And I got there because I got my brains beat in on the line playing football. But there were some who went there and some who were of various colors. And I am not kidding you. They could not sign their name recognizably. And yet not only did they have full scholarships, but they had cars and they had money and they had girls, and you always wonder, well, what's going on here? What am I missing here? But they were good athletes. They could win ball games. And where we have today, with somebody who plays a sport getting $50 million, $100 million to play this, and people don't want to give money to church, and yet they will pay for those tickets time after time to pay for these exorbitant salaries of these people. Just something is wrong. And so here are two kids, or the trench coat mafia, and they're saying, well, okay, now look, I can't be a brother of color. I can't be an athlete. Everybody else seems to love them and follow them. I'm going to be a loser no matter what I do. And not only that, these people have turned on me. Now, again, however culpable they were in their own demise, I do not know. But we've all grown up and we all understand what I'm talking about. And so I only have one recourse. Kill him and then kill myself. I'm worthless. The zero state. But they had so much anger and resentment pent up inside of them that they would blast girls, boys, what have you, in the face, point blank, to kill them and laugh about it. The reason? They were in charge at that point, and that's all they wanted. At one small point in their lives, to be in charge, to be in control, to get some respect, and that was it. What a pitiful state that we're in. And again, I'm not trying to say this group is all wrong. Of course I'm not. Or being an athlete is wrong. But I am talking about what's happening today in our society where it's beginning to influence our kids. I just want to give a little word of advertisement here. Usually I don't ever say about going to a movie one way or the other. If you want to go, that's fine. If you don't want to go, that's fine too. I don't recommend many movies. But when I was gone, there was a couple down at Ron's church there in Texas who said, "Hey, want to take you out for supper? We want to go to a movie." And I thought, "Gee, fine." So we went there, and it was the movie October Sky. If you've never seen it, before it goes off the big screen, you ought to see it. Now, what's it about? It is about growing up in a coal mining town, really not far from where I live, there in Brownsville, Pennsylvania, just south into West Virginia. And this guy had two sons. One son was a football player. And he was known at school, and he was known in the community, and he had the college scouts coming to sign him up, and his dad would always make time for his ball games and so forth. And the other son, who was just more or less because of this average, he didn't care. He realized he's going to end up in the mine, just like unless he got a scholarship, but only football players got scholarships, so he was stuck. And finally, he saw Sputnik. That was the era in which it was set. He saw Sputnik go over, and at the kitchen table they were eating, talking about this guy's football scholarship, and the other brother says, "I'm going to go to space." And they all laughed, and it put him down. And he began the process of raising his grades and looking into what he could do to get hired on at NASA and put America in space to beat the Russians. And let me tell you, you talk about persecution. How he was nothing. He was belittled. His dad never had time for him until he had such determination that and was beginning to win the science fair projects and national science fair projects, that finally at the last his dad came to see him as well, made a little time for him. And there's not very much bad language, just general run-of-the-mill language. But the storyline is great. I came away from there refreshed. Why? Because here was a guy who was considered, just like these trenchcoat mafia kids, nothing. But instead of taking matters into his own hands and killing everybody off, he took matters into his own hands, and he is right now working for NASA and training the astronauts. I mean, it's a true story. And so that's what helped. But he had to go through, excuse the phrase, hell in order to get there. All because the predominant philosophy was, unless you're an athlete, you are a coal miner, and unless you excel in some sort of a sport, you really are a non-com and worthless. And he changed their minds, and it was a refreshing thing. But this is what's happening today. So we have some things here as we're closing out this hour. Some things here that they're telling us with regard to watching our young people so we can see the signs. Fascination with death and violence. Wonder where would have to go to see young people who are not fascinated with some of this by way of the popular music groups. Fascinated with weapons and guns. Again, I grew up in the era when Roy Rogers drew his gun, but he was always the good guy, and I knew the difference between good and bad and why he drew his gun and so forth. Hopalong Cassidy I even had my jammies, Hopalong Cassidy, and the like. I understood. When I was very young, I asked my parents if I earned the money, could I buy a .22 rifle? I did. I never had any conception of pointing it at anybody. Never wanted to, never would. But I had a respect for guns. A lot of deer hunters in my areas there, in my area. But it's a fascination now with weapons of destruction that they're getting on the internet of how to kill people. And by the way, it's not just bombs. It's biological warfare. It's other type things on how to destroy masses of people. And it's right on the internet. You suppose that's ever going to be controlled? No, I doubt it. Drugs. I often wonder, right now, people say drugs are readily available. I wouldn't know where in this community to go if I wanted to get an ounce of this and an ounce of that, a snort of this and a snort of that. Where would I go? I could go to Diane. She'd probably tell me. Well, see, that's different. Everything being normal, what do you dial information? Look in the yellow pages? Of course not. But yet, we find that our young people have it. How do they know where to get it? What haunts are they frequenting so that they can get this stuff? Booze. The kids underage are not supposed to drink. And yet we have irresponsible adults buying the booze, getting them drugs. They seem member of a counterculture group, clearly different from their peers. And with some of the ways our young people are dressing, just like I mentioned last week, how do you know who's who and what's what anymore? Clearly different. My idea of what a person should look like and how they should act is different from what so they're different from the start. Liking violence in the video games, the computer games, and so forth. Our technology, says this psychiatrist, can amplify with true digital clarity the lyrics, the in-your-face violent messages of groups like Marilyn Manson. By the way, Manson ring any bells? What about old Charlie Manson? Why did he say he took his group over, his family, to kill the Tate LaBianca family? Because of the Beatles song, Helter Skelter. He listened, it dominated him. You hear the car stereos, you're driving there and all of a sudden you're beginning to rock back and forth and you're there at a red light and about 20 cars back this kid's got it cranked up. Well, you say, Pastor, what's wrong with that? Did you ever hear of sadomasochism? Where it feels good to hurt and be dominated? That's what that's doing. Any young person who is subject to that over a period of time is sadomasochistic and influenced to the maximum by demons. In his body, he hurts, but he likes it. In his body, he doesn't want to submit to legitimate authority, but he is submitting to the authority of that music because it's so powerful. He's dominated now, you see. And then the inculcation of the repetitive hate message, anti-establishment and authority message. And that's what's happening today. But yet, the woofers and the tweeters in those cars are not going to be sued. The groups that are cranking out the music, they're not going to be sued. A lot of money in that. And yet, that's exactly what's happening. Okay. We're just about done here with time. So what I'm going to do is come to John chapter 14 and read verse number 30. This will be one of the verses we use as a springboard for our next hour. It says, "Hereafter I will not talk much with you, for the prince of this world comes and has nothing in me." And what we'll do then in the next hour is begin to explain things, not just now on the local level as we did with these high school kids and the pitiful situation there. Our hearts go out, but at the same time, We are rejecting en masse the solution God has provided, and we're wondering why it's not working. So we'll take it from the local level, and then we'll look at the historical level as to why this is going on. And I want to tell you right off, this verse of Scripture tells us something Jesus recognized. The prince of this world is the title of Antichrist. It is not Satan's title. He's the God of this world. He's, in essence, here's God the Father. He is the counterpart. Here's God the Son. And the prince of this world versus the prince of peace, or the prince of life, or whatever you want to call Christ. And he is coming. Now, as we're closing out here, for those who are new to our group, we believe that we can show, generally speaking, where this is going to be. And by the way, as we close out, at this year's conference, Pastor Omoki, after I twisted his arm up to about here, no, not really, he is going to give me 2 hours back to back to present Operation Flip Flop. And hopefully we will have it done. Hopefully we will be able to present it with some of our new technology as well, and have the books available for that. But see, if what we're saying is true, that 2012, right down the road here, is a mark in time, then in order to get the man of sin, and by the way, it's not teknon, the one born, it is weos, the mature one. And if he is got a certain time to be revealed, that means that back into the dispensation of grace, he has to be born. He's not revealed to the church as raptured, but he has to be born. So he is, in our estimation, alive and well. And some of the things that are happening with regard to this are happening so that he might be unveiled just down the road.